is they are going to introduce themselves in the first question, which is, tell us about yourself. What are the kinds of things you do every day? And so, Grant, do you want to start us off? I believe Grant has a video to share with us, so he'll be sharing the screen.
Hi everyone, my name is Grant Blasko and I am 18. As you can probably already tell, I use assistive technology rather than my voice to talk. I was diagnosed at age 2 with autism, and that means that I have been in this club for 16 years. The fact that I can't talk at this point might make others have immediate assumptions about my potential, but I am focused on changing those biased opinions about me and about others too. Today, I am a student, dual enrolled in running start at Bellevue High School and Bellevue College here in the Seattle area. I am also a DOIT scholar at the University of Washington, which is a long-standing 3-year mentoring program for college-bound teens with a wide range of disabilities. I have already been an advocate for autism, and especially for those with communication challenges, for many years. I am proud of my work with TASH in Communication First, where I have had an opportunity to stand up for what I believe needs to improve for the benefit of autistic individuals. Currently, I am co-designing a course to discuss UDL support for AAC users in schools, and I am working on a few projects that outline executive function education needs for AAC users. What else? I moved out west in 2017 from the Washington, D.C. area, where I had lived from the time I was born until halfway through 8th grade. I still think of the D.C. area as my home, and I have hopes to go back someday. I'm the oldest of 3 kids. I have a sister named Devin, who is 16, and a brother, Scott, who is 14. My out-of-school interests span from high energy to quiet, reflective activities, depending on my day and the people around me, but I always enjoy hiking, museums, music, dining out, and deep conversation. And I love coffee, so I guess it is a good thing that I ended up in Seattle. I also enjoy skiing, and I love travel. Conferences are some of my best opportunities to catch up with friends from all over the country that I've met through the disability and autism communities. Since COVID began, my life has been a bit boring in many ways, LOL, but I am really happy to be here tonight, and it is cool to see all the familiar names on our sign-up sheet. I miss seeing you all so much.
Thank you so much, Grant. That was a really great introduction, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more about what you have to say, so thank you. We'll jump to the next question, and it's, how do you feel about the way that autism is talked about and framed in the world? You know, how do you feel about the high functioning / low functioning, or, you know, mild, severe, or like spicy dichotomies? And how has it impacted you in your own life personally? Or, you know, for you, Celeste, like how has it impacted your son as well? So we'll jump to Grant first. Hi, Grant.
Ready? Okay, I think we're back.
You are. Welcome back.
We're going to share again.
I'd like to start by acknowledging how we got here tonight. When Zach reached out to me, I was ready to do whatever he asked. He's been a great liaison for me in the Seattle area and has pulled me into discussions where I might not have otherwise had an invitation. To say he has been an ally is an understatement. In this past year, equity discussions seem to permeate every topic, and so I have been hopeful. However, it makes me sad to see the turmoil among the voices in the autism community, so my goal today is to share my experience, and I hope that the conversation that results is positive. As a non-speaking autistic with what most would describe as high support needs, I can say that it is rare to hear autism depicted how I would like it to be seen. I do not like the terms mild or severe, or high or low functioning, but I can acknowledge that there are differences in experience. My communication disability affects every single aspect of my day. My coping behaviors also create barriers for me. I have gone through very dark stages several times during my life, so I can relate easily to people in crisis. People who get to know me think I am beyond this, but the truth is I am constantly aware of stereotypes associated with non-speakers like me who struggle to mask the effects of autism. In every interaction, I feel both a responsibility to not only win over people to get my own needs met, but to advocate for others as well. It is a lot of pressure to feel day after day, and there is no research I am aware of that follows this kind of strain on mental health. I can count on scrutiny and controversy everywhere I go, and it weighs on me. I should not be concerned with these opinions, but I am, because their rhetoric makes me feel less safe in every setting. If I don't speak up, I won't be safe going forward either. Neurodiversity and disability acceptance is important, and I have so much respect for the movement. I also believe in educating and collaborating. That is why I have pushed myself to speak up. So there comes a day when I feel safer to be in the community. Autism is a wide spectrum of people, it is true. But I think what I want to make sure I say is that we all deserve a voice and respect, even if we cannot directly say it yet on our own. That said, I find it exhausting to constantly have to correct misinformation coming from many different directions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really relate to a lot of what you said. Like so often, people don't realize, like they see the autism, sure, but they also don't see like, the trauma or like the mental health struggles that we have to go through because, essentially we as autistic or disabled people are forced to exist in, these boxes that like society creates for us when we might not necessarily fit in well to those boxes. And it really brings to mind, like first the concept of like masking for autistic people. It also brings to mind for me like what my Black and brown friends and colleagues have said about code switching, where they got to exist in a certain way in front of white people, and then just the sheer like emotional exhaustion that comes from that. So it's a really important reminder of like how all the forms of oppression and marginalization are very similar and connected into so many different ways. And it's definitely something I'm sure we're going to talk about a little more later in the panel. So thank you. So the next question we have is, how has the framing and societal of perceptions impacted the services you have received in your life? Do you feel like there's any services or opportunities you did not get because of, these framings? Grant, what are you thinking?
The framing of autism as a deficit model definitely impacted my early life. And yes, the biggest service I did not get was access to inclusive education with my peers until 5th grade because of the perception that I needed to be treated very differently. I was not born with the same neurology as a typical person, and my experiences of toxic stress from trying to mimic typical behavior left me with PTSD responses to everyday exposures most people don't even notice. Over a long journey, I have done a lot of work to figure out compensatory strategies so that I can participate in life to the best of my ability, and I expect that I will continue to improve. But only if the supports I need are available, and that includes a better understanding from professionals of what constitutes trauma and re-traumatization.
Yeah, that's important. I have seen like, I've not really seen trauma really talked about at all within many of the treatment settings that serve autistic people around here. And it's in such contrast to like all the other mental health facilities. And yeah, I would really be interested to know like why that is. Maybe it has something to do with the perception that, yeah, we as autistic people just can't be traumatized, or I don't know what. It's interesting though. The next question we have, and it's a long one, so bear with me. If an autistic person is not able to speak with their mouth parts, it's often assumed that it means they're not able to think or to understand the world around them and make decisions for themselves. Yet several of you are capable of communicating in ways other than speaking. And so what I'm wondering is like, what's happened that, makes you capable of doing so? Or, why is that when, like so many other autistic people are thought of as not being able to do so? Is it like a matter of the environment you've, existed in and the supports you've been able to receive? Is it something to do with biology? And thinking about something Kedar wrote, where he was in a classroom, teachers couldn't understand him, and he couldn't communicate in a way the teachers could understand. He looked around and saw many other autistic people in the classroom going through the same experience. And so I'm also wondering, like, is that, do you see other like non-speaking autistic people going through that? Does that make sense? All right, and looks like Grant will answer that first. I am spotlighting him.
The
Awesome.
first of that question is why I always agree to talk to audiences. We need to get over the idea that you can look at a person and guess their level of understanding, or that you do an assessment without first building a trusting relationship. We need to start the narrative of constant curiosity instead. Everyone is different. Each autistic person is different, with their own unique challenges, but I definitely think there are many non-speakers who are underestimated. The reason I was successful is multifactorial. What I needed was respect for what was hard for me and the coaching to get through it. I spent a lot of time feeling bad about myself because I could not pull it together. You need the right environment, which includes people with the right mindsets and the right training who can remain curious. Communication partners need to think about support in a more holistic way. They need an understanding of how to lower stress and co-regulate with a student who may be in fight or flight most of the time. They need to learn how to spot problems and dynamically change gears. At the same time, they give good feedback, like a coach would. They need to focus on the relationship. My early interventions focused on quick responses, which increased my anxiety and added to the performance problem I was already dealing with. So for a while, I was very resistant to trying. I was the kid who ran away from my device because it was too painful to fail anymore. I had so many bad habits, but with empathy and coaching, I got better at everything. With the right trained supports, I think many autistic non-speakers may be able to make progress. I was also fortunate to meet older AAC users when I did. I didn't know about non-speaking advocates until I was 10, and meeting them opened up my mind to the possibility of what I could do. That model of someone more like me meant so much. Why isn't this a regular part of intervention? We also need to think about why there is no disability in autistic culture in schools. I do my best to fit into typical environments, but my sociology class has helped me to articulate that the lack of signs of my culture in everyday settings caused me a lot of stress. My communication efforts were not a miracle or a quick fix, as some would suggest. It took me years of hard work, literally thousands and thousands of hours, to get to a point where I can type independently. It required massive commitment from my family, particularly my mom, along with dozens of other people who have helped me build the necessary skills. This is a journey that is very hard, and not every non-speaker is given the opportunity. I am very grateful for the people that helped me, but I am sad for others who have not had the same opportunity. I just spoke to a group of SLPs not too long ago. They were surprised when I told them how stressful it is to be an AAC user. I was blown away that it was news, but encouraged that they were willing to think about things differently. Overall, I don't think many professionals really understand how many sensory, attention, and intentional movement skills all need to be coming together to produce effective communicative interactions. When you use an AAC device, you are actually doing dozens of executive function skills at the same time. What I can say is that to pay attention to every one of the skills that may be affected by dyspraxia is exhausting. Dyspraxia affects a lot more than just whether or not I can walk without tripping or point properly. I'll stop here, but I am happy to share more later.
Awesome. Well, that's That's definitely an amazing answer, and it's given me, so much to think about. It connects to mind the concept of invalidation trauma, which was written about in a book called Trauma, Stigma, and Autism. And it's essentially, like I've experienced it in my own life, where I'm so afraid of failure. I'm so afraid of being judged that I just won't do things that I might fail in and have to deal with like public shame and ridicule. And so, yeah, like I'd never thought about, before, like non-speakers experiencing that when trying to learn, how to communicate using AAC. And I think it's critical that, like SLPs or other, professionals working with AAC realize that and just realize like, even if someone can't communicate with their words, like they're still under this enormous pressure and just like this expectation to be able to perform in this certain way, like whether it be verbal communication or learning how to type to communicate. And I think, yeah, we definitely need to give non-speakers a lot more grace when going through that. And then also the idea of, dyspraxia, like maybe SLPs would, or occupational therapists would understand what that means, but like teachers or, like behaviorists or, like social workers working with autistic kids, like for a lot of them, they wouldn't even consider that, like, the fact that your brain can't necessarily communicate to your body like how to move and how to act like impacts you, like, and I think there definitely needs to be more awareness of that. So I'm so glad you really brought all of that up. And then also, yeah, the idea, like if you're the only non-speaker, you've never met any older ones, it's so easy to just see a future like filled with like failure and not being able to perform and not knowing like what does success look like, what do I have to look forward to. So I think it is critical we connect non-speaking adults with non-speaking children. Like, yeah, that thank you so much. That answer has given me so much to think about. The next question, which is, it's really thinking about like what needs to change. So the question is like, what kind of change do you want to make in the world? What kind of change needs to be made to make it easier for you to exist in the world the way you want to exist? What should speaking autistic people or non-autistic people do to make that happen, in terms of like thinking about, allyship or accomplishment? So thank you. Grant, when you're ready.
Okay,
I want to work on pushing for trauma-informed communication supports, but another topic I need to talk about is UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. This past summer I was able to present with Michael McSheehan at the 2020 CAST UDL Summer Symposium, and that has been a mission for me. As an AAC user, I have had access to elementary, middle, and high schools in 2 states, and now I am taking college classes. When universal design for learning is in place, it gives me the greatest chance to feel like just another student trying to effectively learn, choosing my preferences from all of the available class supports. What I like to say is that I am an expert learner, the moment the barriers to access are removed. Last year, I shared my suggested slogan for UDL at an autism conference. It was, "Give the kids a break." So, what do I mean by that? Really, it is all about decreasing threats that make a marginalized student feel more vulnerable in the environment. Prepare for a student to be in your class. Think about what it would be like to endure a day without a voice, and think about how many different ways your curriculum might be causing stress without intending to do so. I am welcomed into classes, but that does not mean they were designed for me, or that a teacher is ready for me. Here's what might happen. A lesson might have objectives, activities, and assignments that never consider how I will do any of that work. The materials may not be digital, so that means I might not be able to increase the font size or use my text-to-speech accommodation. The worksheets may be on paper or a scanned picture of a document, which means that someone will need to create a document just for me. The activity may call for a small group discussion over just a couple of minutes. I only type 11 words per minute, so I am supposed to get questions ahead, but that doesn't happen every day, so I do the best I can, but it is stressful. In universally designed lessons, so many of these stressors would be removed. That's what I want to make sure I talk about. Paraeducators and teachers who support students who have communication challenges can move mountains, but the work should be distributed. When general education teachers didn't really know all the ways I was running into barriers, then they couldn't improve at including more kids like me. My heart breaks when I walk into a class and realize nobody thought about how I would participate ahead of time, and when I am sad, I have a much harder time staying calm and attentive. The paraeducator with me will now have to scramble, and everyone sees all the effort, so I won't look competent to many people today. It is another day where my membership depends on people being nice, rather than on the value I bring to the community when I am given access that allows my strengths to be visible to my peers. So, you can see this is hard, but we have made really good progress. At this point, I'd like to share how my team and I have addressed some of my barriers. Here are a few examples of things I shared. If you need to ask a question at the start of class, make it an easy one. When I walk into class, even if it is online, my body is already primed for apprehension. This has nothing to do with whether or not I like the subject or the teacher, it is just a nervous reaction. I calm down once I get into the flow, but if you start off with a big question about all my prior learning and put me on the spot, I might not be in a great place to carve out a complex answer. So, I asked my teachers to do a quick recap of where we left off last and ask me a quick easy question to get started. Another example was related to how I use assistive technology. In AAC, we talk about the number of hits it takes to say something meaningful. Each letter counts as a hit, but if I use word prediction, it is less. So, I try to explain this to teachers who say that if I can reduce my motor demand to 1 to 2 hit answers, it saves my energy to make it through my day. If I am writing nonstop in first period, I am drained by fourth. When I react out of nowhere in fifth period, that fatigue and frustration may have been building since much earlier in the day when I did too much. So now, I ask my teachers to try to limit my long answers to really important points and give me a way to do quick check-ins with them so the flow in class is not so much work from my side. Here are a few examples of things.
That's it.
Those were really, really great suggestions. And if you y'all could like email those to me, I'll make sure they go out to the folks who attended, because yeah, those were really important. And I think, Grant, your quote about, my membership depends on if people are feeling nice, not on what I can actually bring. Like that just rings true, especially in my own life. Like I've learned that it's not up to me, like whether or not my autism is going to be a problem. It's really up to the neurotypicals and non-disabled people around me. And like, it's not at all easy to feel like powerless, like not knowing, am I going to be accepted when I walk into this space, or when I, go to, get my next job. Like there's just so much fear and terror. And yeah, I think it's important to consider like, what experiences of like apprehension are, non-speaking autistic children bringing with them into like treatment settings or into the classrooms, or even just in their relationships with others. So that was a really great answer, and really great advice. So thank you so much. I will also ask for, patience and understanding for DJ and Grant. They had the questions I asked ahead of time, but for these audience questions, they'll probably be able to answer them, but it might take them a while to type them. So, Celeste or, either DJ or Grant's parents might also step in and answer the questions while DJ and Grant are typing them. So yeah. Francis, do you have the questions ready?
Yeah. Can everyone hear me? I'm good. First, I just want to say that there are so many positive comments in the chat box. And so I just want to say that people are loving this. The first question is, do you feel like the speaking autistic community voices concerns that are relevant to supporting non-traditionally speaking autistic people? And that was a question from Katrina.
Go ahead.
So, glad to be
All right, you have to keep going. Try and put all that to the side. I know it's hard.
here, and I think that all autistic people should stick together. Dot. I am so glad to be here, and I think that all autistic people should stick together.
Awesome. Thank you, Grant. Do you have anything else you want to add? Or Larry and Cindy, do you have anything else you want to say on that? Because we did speak about this a little this week.
Like you can kind of see he's been really calm through most of this. Now he's pretty dysregulated, but happy way.
Yeah.
I will add, I'm sorry, I'm not on camera at all tonight. But so I will add that and we did talk about this earlier, that the speaking autistic community.
Oh, it's totally okay.
I see, I'm forgetting the original question.
Yeah, it's about whether the speaking autistic community supports the non-speakers well enough.
You know, our experience is that they do. We came from the DC area where ASON is, so we felt that there was always that. Okay, you need to settle down a bit. It's, I guess, when it's a complicated thing between some of the parent groups and the autistic speaking community. Yeah. And so we kind of feel like sometimes you see both sides of the fence. And so that can feel difficult to navigate sometimes, because it's not that we don't feel compassion for the parent communities and the people who are really in a state of crisis. And it's hard to watch them. Even when they're not saying things that we agree with, it's hard to watch that process unfold online. It's stressful.